Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Ayin Aleph in Avodah Zarah. We learn for Achenical basis on Sunnah Tzara V'Shivya. We'll start from the Mishnah at the bottom of Ayin Amid Beis. Bolsha Shenechnas La'ir. If you had Bolsha is usually a detective, means troops. Goyish troops who are over the Avodah Zarah come into the city. V'Shal Shalom. If there's a time of peace that they're just visiting there. They're what's the word? What's the word when the troops stay there and
Looking for the girls.
They're hanging out there. They're sleeping there. So if it's time peace, if there's open jugs, you have open jugs of wine, asuras, you have to assume that they mix it for avodah zarah, for the yayin nesach. Yayin nesach is again when they mix it with their hand, they stir it. So if there's open jugs, you have to assume if they goyim visited there and they weren't under any pressure, you could assume that they turn it into yayin nesach. Stumos, if it's sealed jugs, then mutaris, because they were sealed, so they're not going to open them up, and it would be too much trouble to open them up and try to reseal them and make it look legitimate, like it wasn't. It would be difficult for them to tell. An expert could open up a seal and reseal it and make it look good, but the troops maybe weren't that well versed in that. So if you had a sealed jug, that would be okay. You could drink the wine. B'shas Machama, if it was a time of war, they don't have time for yayin nesach. They're busy with their guns and fighting. B'shas Machama, both open and sealed jugs are mutter, because you can assume that they were not menasach the wine. There's no time for them to be menasach. They don't have time for that because they're busy with the war. For a mini, says the Gemara at the top, Vayin Aleph. If let's say Goyish troops besieged a city, called now all the women who are married to Kohanim in there are puzzled because we assume that they were violated by the goyim, and a Eshes Kohen, even if she was raped against her will, but she still can't stay with her husband. So they're all also. So what do you mean? If it's a time of when they're besieging the city, there's a time of war. How do they have time to rape the women? Says Amarav Mori, there's no time for wine, but for that they make time. For raping, they make time for that. So they're not the same thing. So the point is that if it's a time of war, even open jugs are permitted. The wine, you can assume that they weren't menasach the wine. Says the Mishnah. Let's say you had a Jewish craftsman had done some work for the goyim, and they paid them. The goyim paid them with wine, barrels of wine, jugs of wine. So Shal Yisrael sent them wine as their payment, Bischarin as their payment. Mutter Lomer, the Jew could tell the guy, listen, I'd rather not have the wine. Can you give me cash instead? We like cash. We don't want wine. Can you give me that? That's okay. However, if the Jews had accepted it already, the guy sent it, and it was already in the rishus, in the possession of the Jew, he's got yayin nesach in his hands. Also, he can't do anything with it. He's got to throw it out because it's already his. But if he hasn't received it yet, he could say, "Listen, I'd rather take the cash." Like the Jew who converted, and then his father died, and he had a brother who had not converted. So what does he tell the brother? You keep the idols, I'll take the cash. That you're allowed to do, right? But if the idols were already in his possession, it's too late. Marav says the Gemara like this. A Jew could tell a guy, listen, do me a favor. These Jews weren't too smart. Usually it's good to have a Jewish accountant. They know how to cook the books better, right? But he tells a guy, listen, go out, why don't you go and placate the taxman for me? Can you do that for me? Can you placate him and pay him off? Give him a bribe? You're allowed to do that. Even though the guy may pay the taxman with yayin nesach, because he could say, listen, I said, pay him off. I'm willing to pay him cash. You gave him yayin nesach, even though the yayin nesach was given on behalf of the Jew, but the Jew didn't demand yayin nesach. He says, just pay him off. If the guy decided to pay with yayin nesach, it's not his problem. So you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to say, go placate the taxman for me, I'll pay you back. Even if the guy the agent that he placated the taxman was paying him off with Yain. You shouldn't tell a guy, oh, sir, go in place of me, go take my place. So the oaths are either it's like they
What time is it?
pay off the
We have to go down?
pay off the let me just
What time is it?
6:25.
let me just okay.
What time is it in New York?
Okay. Mute. Okay. Yeah. So here he says you're not allowed to tell the guy to go take your place. In other words, go placate him. You're not allowed to do that. So it's mashma. You can't do that. He says, "Al yomer all tachtil go place with me to the otzer." The otzer is either the otzer could be it's like the equivalent of with an olive where the government stores all their wines and oils and things like that, and Yasser could either be a lashon with an ayin. It's more like go on my behalf, in my place. It could also be otsar with an aleph, or go, placate the government official. You can't tell him that, even though he's going to give him, why? Because he's going to give him yayin nesach instead. Ovikachab means he's going to give him yayin nesach. So here's mashma: you can't tell a guy to go placate the government or the authorities, whatever, with yayin nesach. Amalei Rav. Old tachti load. So you're talking about where he said, "Take my place." Hello, that's not a similar. In other words, when you tell him, "Take my place," then if the guy who's taking your place, the guy gives him yayin nesach, then it's like it was your yayin nesach. Elalaha. This is comparable to the case that I said, where you could tell the guy, "Go placate the taxman for me." Avaloma is compared to this guy. Avaloma lo malteni min otzer. Save me, rescue me from the tax authorities, save me from the authorities. So if he says, "Go in my place," that means whatever you give, if you give him yayin nesach, it's like I'm giving him yayin nesach. You shouldn't do that. But if he just says, save me, I'm willing to pay cash. If you give him yayin nesach, that's your problem. All right, here we come to the interesting question, the Mishnah, about which gets into the idea of how does a goy acquire something? We know when it comes to a Jew, you can acquire. Not talking about acquiring a woman, right? What about property, real estate? Kesef shtar chazaka, right? You could with cash. However, when it comes to movables, if I give you something, buy you something, or I sell you something, you can only acquire it with a proper kinyan, like mashicha, pulling something or lifting it or making it move if it's a heavy animal. There's a machlokas, famous machlokas we had throughout Shas, Yochanan, and Rish Lakish. Is that Raisa Rabban? In other words, money does not work. Money does not work when a Jew is acquiring a movable from another Jew. Money doesn't work. Some say, the one sheet is that it does work Mera Raisa. Really, it does. But the rabbis made a takana, Shalo Yomru Yisruchi Techabalia, that I sell you something, you give me cash, right? Now it's yours. But it's still in my barn, still in my silo, and it burns down. What do I care? It's yours. It's your problem. So you shouldn't do that. They say only quiet with Mashiach. Other sheet is no, that Midaraisa, it only works with Mashiach. But that's from a Jew to a Jew. What about a goy? How does a goy make a kinyan? We're going to have this machlokas today. Could a goy make a kinyan with money? For sure works. Yeah. If a goy makes a kinyan with money, if he pays for it, then it's his. Does Mashiach work for a goy also? We're going to see a machlokas about that. Therefore, the poskim say it's better to do both. Like when you're selling the guy the chametz or something like that, better to do both the kinyan and money, because you're not sure if which one works. I mean, we're sure that money works. The question is if Mashiach work. That's going to be our discussion now. Says the Mishnah, you're selling wine to a guy. Now here's the problem. If you sell the wine to the guy and he stirs it before he acquires it, you got a problem, because it's your wine now. Your wine, you can't have enough. If it's your wine if the guy was menasach your wine, you can't have enough from it. You can't take money for it, right? That's the problem. So what's the idea? The idea is that it's better when you sell wine to a guy, he should make a kinyan in it first before it turns into yayin nesach. Then you're okay. So the Mishnah says, if you fix the price before he measured it out, that was before he gave it to him, then dam mutarim. Why? Presumably because the price was fixed before, and now the guy basically bought it already before he turned it into yain nesach. But let's say you measured it out for him. You poured it into his jug, or you poured it into a jug that he was acquiring it with. Then he could have turned it into yain nesach before he acquired it. If you didn't have a fixed price yet, he didn't fix the price yet. He says, "Let's give me some wine, and we'll work out the price later on." Then dam avasur. And why? Because the guy turned it into yain nesach while it was still yours before you sold it to him. Because he didn't. The sale is not final till he acquires it. So therefore, he says like this: if you fix the price first, so then he knew he was getting it. It's like he bought it already. He bought it already. As soon as the price was fixed, he bought it already. Now, how did he pay for it? Did he pay for it with money? Did he pay for it with money? But how did he acquire it? Did he acquire it with money, or did he acquire it by pulling it? So if you had the price before you measured it out, so then like he acquired it already, then you're okay. The guy acquired it before he turned it into yain nesach. But if he turned it into yain nesach while it's still in your possession, you've got a problem. So the Gemara is, but it's not clear from the Mishnah, did he pay for it or did he make Mashiach? How did that work? Omar Meimer. So Meimer said like this: Mashiach this is a machlokas. Does Mashiach? We know Mashiach works for a Jew. If you sell something to a Jew and he makes Mashiach on it, he acquires it at that point. You go into the store, you pick up the loaf of bread, you acquire it at that point, whether you paid for it or not. That's a Jew to a Jew. What about a guy? Can a guy make Mashiach? So Meimer says, yeah, Mashiach works. Tater, what's the proof to that? The Hani Parsoi, these Persians, they send gifts to one another, but they never retract. Now, why don't they retract? Why can't he renege on it or retract if Mashiach doesn't work? If it's a gift, he didn't pay for it. Why does Mashiach works? Rav says no. Mashiach doesn't work by a guy. The reason why when the Persians send gifts to one another, they can never retract. They can't be Indian givers. It doesn't work. But the reason they don't retract is the Ramasruchu who done a kitlu. They have pride. If I gave you a gift and then I asked for it back, how does that look? Right? Doesn't look nice. So they have pride in that. Once they give a gift, they let the guy keep it. Although the recipient's Mashiach maybe doesn't work. So we have this machlokas between a Meimer and Rav Ashi, and that machlokas will stand. Does Mashiach by a guy work or not? Well, Rav Ashi, how do I know that Mashiach does not work? How do I know this? By a guy. That a guy, if a guy is acquiring something, whether it's from another guy or from a Jew, doesn't work. So if you say Rav, the great rabbi Rav, told the Jewish wine sellers, when you measure out wine to the guy, as you're selling wine to him, first get cash, get money from them first. Okay, so therefore they acquired it already before they took the wine, before they made shich on the wine. And then pour it out. In other words, let the guy purchase it before he actually physically took it in his hand. Why? The elo says, let's say they have no cash. Many times it happens, the purchaser doesn't have cash. What do? Lend him the money. If the guy doesn't have money, lend him the money. Now he owes you money. You lend him $100, he owes you $100. But it's his money now. Now he buys the wine from you with cash, and he pays for it cash. Do it that way. And then you'll get the money from later on. Why? So it's a loan. You lent him money. Now that money is his. He owes you $100. That's not only the same $100. When you lend money, people are going to use that money, right? They're going to give you back a different $100. So he has a loan. He has an outstanding loan, but it's his $100 now. Now he gives you the $100 for the wine. So he bought the wine before you measured it out. The elo of the achli, because if you don't do that, if he doesn't give you the money first, when is it going to turn to yain nesach? When it's in your reshus. If he didn't pay you for it and you're measuring it out to him, as soon as it was received, it goes into the vessel, whatever, into his cup, whatever, into his jug, it's going to turn. He's turning it into yain nesach. And when you take money for him afterwards, you're taking the money for yain nesach. In other words, if he doesn't pay for it first, as soon as you measure it out, right? As soon as you measure it out, he turns it into yain nesach. Then when he pays you for it, it's your yain nesach. It's your yain nesach that you're selling to him because he hasn't acquired it yet. The last line on the page, if you say that Mashiach works, if you say that Mashiach works, then what's the problem? as soon as if Mashiach works, what's your problem? Why did Rav say, make sure you get paid for it first? He said, get paid for it first so that it belongs to the guy before he turned it into Yain Nesach. Why? If Mashiach works on the guy, as soon as he pulled it, as soon as he took the wine, right, he acquired it. Yain Nesach Lavi Adonagbe. He doesn't turn Yain Nesach until he stirs it or puts his finger in there afterwards. So that's a proof that Mashiach does not work. Otherwise, why did Rav say get paid first? Why? If Mashiach works, you don't have to get paid first. As soon as he pulled the wine, drew the wine to himself, it's his, and then he turned into Yain Nesach. It's not your problem. You didn't get paid for Yain Nesach. He turned into Yain Nesach afterwards. Elamai Rav says it shows you that Mashiach doesn't work. Says more no. You're right. If he would be pouring it into the Jewish jug, in other words, they didn't have chad pa'ami, they had jugs, right? So they had. If he poured it into the Jewish jug, ein achanami, it could be that the Mashiach could have worked. He pulled it in there. But that's not the case over here. We don't need that here. You know why it happened over here? Why he said it? It could very well be that Mashiach does work, says a Meimar. Meimar's responding. He said, Meimar said that Mashiach does work. But what's the problem over here? The problem is he's pouring it into the goy, the purchaser's own vessel, and there's already some Yain Nesach in there. He had some wine in there. He brought it in. It wasn't they didn't use spick and span and clean out the vessel. You know, some drops were in there already. When he measures out and puts it in his cup, so it turns the Yain Nesach right there. In other words, before he made Mashiach. Says Rashi, the fourth line of Rashi, the Yain Shabakli Osir, the wine in the Kli that's already there, Osir's it, Yain Nesach become Mashiach. In other words, Ameimer's argument says, no, Mashiach would work. The reason why he says get paid up here first is because it becomes Yain Nesach before he made Mashiach, as soon as it went into the vessel of the guy. Says more sof kimot avir demana kanye. So what if it went to the vessel of the guy and, so to speak, it already got mixed in with the Yain Nesach that the guy had in there already. As soon as you poured it in, as soon as he poured it in, as soon as it reached the airspace of the vessel of the guy, he acquired it. If you say Mashiach works, then this is like Hakba, it's a kind of Mashiach, it's another kind of drawing. In other words, if you say that Mashiach does work, so what's the problem over here? That it became Yain Nesach by pouring it into the vessel of the guy mixed with the drops of the Yain Nesach that was already in there. But when he poured it in, as soon as he started to pour it into the airspace of the vessel, the guy acquired it then, if Mashiach works. Kimat lavir mana kanya, and it doesn't become Yain Nesach until it's mixed in with the other wine in the base of the vessel. Elamai, what do you say? Shma mina nitzik. So what does that mean? Wait. If you're saying that, does that prove we're going to have on tomorrow's daf? Does a flow make a connection? In other words, let's say you're pouring milk or water, right, from one kli into another. The bottom kli that you're pouring into is tamei, and you're pouring from another kli into there. Does that flow connect the two? If you're talking about molasses or honey, which has thick density, then it is connection. But if it's just liquid like milk or wine, would that make a connection? Are you saying over here, Shmamina nitzik chimur? Does that mean over here that what? That the fact that it's connected, there's a flow there, does that join them and make it usher? Is that, he says, more says low. You're not going to have a kli. If the guy was holding it in his hand, hachanami, you're right, then it would work. But let's read the monachar, maybe it's on the ground. Okay, so therefore he's not making. In other words, the question was, that Rav Ashi said to a Meimar, well, as soon as it reached the airspace, right, the guy should have acquired it. If you say Mashiach works, then as soon as it reached the airspace in his hand, while he's holding the jug, he acquired it before it touched the Yain Nesach. Elamai, what are you going to say? Maybe nitzik is a chibur. Even the wine, which is in the flow, it hasn't reached the bottom yet, is connected to the Yain Nesach at the bottom of the purchaser's kli, right? Is that a proof to that? Says more. No, that could be only if the guy is holding it. That could be the case. But over here it's on the ground. And if it's on the ground, he's not making a kinyan on it. Particularly Caleb, okay. But if the kli belongs to the guy, so the kli, even if it's on the ground, should acquire from him. Elamai, you're telling me if he's not holding it, if he's holding it, he's making Mashiach or a Hakba by lifting it. He's holding the jug. But if it's on the ground, he's not holding it. What about don't his vessels acquire even in the Rishus of the Mocher? In other words, the vessel itself should acquire for him. So Lokan says no. Maybe he did acquire it. There is some wine that's held back, meaning before it even reaches the inner rim, the inside of the jug of the purchaser, there's some wine on the rim, on the outside of the kli. There's some wine that's held back there on the rim of the cup. The kama insachle. As soon as the wine hits that, it becomes yain nesach, even before there's mashicha.
Something about the water of the yain for retroactively back.
Right.
That whole discussion was held, from what I read, it held at the time of the Beit HaMikdash. It's a certain sect of Kohanim and left the Beit HaMikdash because of this.
Because of that issue. Yeah, could be, yeah. So we'll see it more tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to discuss that. Is the flow a connection or not? So the Gemara says wine there. So therefore, the argument over here is Rav Ashi said, you see from over here, Mashiach is not Kona, because if it would be Kona, there wouldn't be a problem. Rob wouldn't have had to say pay for it first. Because if they make Mashiach before, if the guy acquires it with Mashiach, he would anyway own it before he turns to the Ayin Esach. So the Gemara says, no, it's speaking about a case where he could have acquired it. He had his the purchaser, the guy had a kli, and there was some wine on the rim, so it would become yain nesach. Therefore, he said, pay for it first. Rav says, pay for it first, because otherwise, when you pour it, as soon as you start pouring it, even before the guy made Mashiach, maybe Mashiach would work, but even before it hit that, it would become yain nesach. This doesn't go like Shmuel. Why? Because Shmuel said before, let's say you have some barrels of wine. You have 100 barrels of wine in your cellar, and there was one barrel of yain nesach that got mixed up in there. So what you could do is you could sell the whole lot. Let's say you had 99 barrels of wine, and there was one more barrel of yain nesach that got mixed up in there. So you have now 100 barrels in your cellar. Sell it to a guy for the price of 99. So you're not getting any money for the yain nesach. So you're not getting enough. Rav Shmuel says you could do that. So why over here don't you say the same thing to here? So what if the wine got mixed up with the yain nesach, right? Got mixed up. You're saying as soon as the wine touched that yain nesach drops, it became yain nesach. But what? So don't have enough from that yain nesach. In other words, though, you could sell the wine, excluding the value of the yain nesach. Doesn't go like and Rashi points out, whenever we have a klal, like him. We're trying to explain this according to Rav. Rav was one who said to the Jewish wine sellers, make sure you get paid first, because otherwise, if you don't get paid first, it's going to become yain nesach while it's yours, and then you're going to have enough from the yain nesach when you sell to them. Rav explained that you could sell the 100 barrels for the price of 99 only if they're in individual barrels. But if the wine is mixed up, the liquid's all mixed up in one barrel, you don't say that I'll sell it for the value of the non-yain nesach wine. You don't say that. So therefore, it's not a problem with Rav. Let's say you buy metal pieces, broken metal. Grutos are like broken metal, right? Broken pieces of coins, even broken coins. You buy from a guy. You found among the whole stash, you bought a whole bale of metal, broken coins, old coins and metal. You buy it from a guy, and then you found among them an idol. You had one little metal idol in there. If you haven't paid for it yet, if you hadn't paid for it yet, and you acquired it, you made mashicha, you could still return it. Give it back to the guy. Right? Say, I don't want to pay for that. Once you paid for it, once you paid for it already, it's avodah zarah in your hands. And what can you do with it? You have to destroy it.
But why don't you say, since he bought it, that it's a whole box of throw?
Right.
So the boy was off with the avodah zarah already.
No. Maybe since he sold it, he was like, could be. That's a good question. Why don't you say that he was mevatel it on purpose? That's a proof. So that's a shaila before it. You always assume that he sold when he sold it. If you know that he was mevatel it, then it's okay. But you don't know that for sure. So therefore, you have to destroy it. You don't know for sure. It could be that the guy himself didn't realize there was an idol in there. Right? He had a whole stash of stuff in there, and he was selling you coins. It could be the guy himself didn't remember that it was an idol. Huh?
Or he did it purposely.
Or he did it purposely, yeah, to make you fall into that
Yeah.
trap. You're right. If he was Mavatla, it wouldn't be a problem. But we don't know that he was Mavatla. Maybe the guy himself didn't realize that he sold them down. He sold them the whole stock, the whole lot.
He sold a whole box.
A whole box, and he doesn't know what he had in there. He doesn't know what he had in there, like scrap metal. And there happened to be an idol in there too. You have to destroy it. Now, that's if you pay for it, right? When you pay for it, if you say Mashiach alone works, how can you return it? You said before, if you haven't paid for it yet, you can return it, even though you made Mashiach. Now, Rav Meir said that Mashiach works. If Mashiach works by a guy, how can you return it? You acquired it already. How can you just return it? You have to destroy it. Because here it doesn't mean mercy. It's really mekachtos. I didn't mean to buy any idol. I wanted scrap metal. I wasn't going to buy any idol. The Jew wouldn't buy an idol on purpose. So therefore, the whole sale wasn't a good sale. If I made Mashiach on something, if you sell me, I don't know, whatever, you sell me one item A, and you said it's in a box here, and I made Mashiach on item B, I didn't mean to buy B. I wanted to buy A. It's a mistake. Amarava. So if that's the case, why, if you paid for it, why is that a problem too? You paid for it, it was a mistake too. Amarava. Reishi mekachtos, sefer lav mekachtos. The beginning, the first part, when you haven't paid for it yet, that was a mekachtos, you can return it. And the sefer where you paid for it, you can't return it, you have to destroy it. Why? It's also mekachtos. Elamarava, reishi v'sefer mekachtos, and mekachtos in both. Reishi only obviously in the beginning, in the first case where you haven't paid for it yet, it doesn't look like it's in your hands. Since you haven't paid for it yet, it looks like you were just examining it. It doesn't look like there was an idol in the hands of in the property of a Jew. Sefer the Yavzuze, but in the sefer where you paid for it, it looks that way. The truth is, you should be able to return it, but it doesn't look good. It looks like you had an idol in your rishus. Therefore, the better thing is to destroy it. Amalei Makshisha, Rav Chisda, Ravashi, Makshisha. Remember, one of the sons, there was Mar Yenuka, Makshisha, the two sons of Rav Chisda. Machlokas, which one was the older one? But in any case, Mark Shisha said that the son of Rav Chisda said to Ravashi, Tashma, I'll bring a proof from here. Again, Ravashi maintains that Mashiach doesn't work. Tashma. Right? You sell your wine to a guy, right? That's our Mishnah. Right? I sell your wine to a guy. And if you set the price before you measured it out, right? Why? Because it belonged to the guy, right? The guy bought it before he turned it into Yayin Nesach, so you're allowed to keep the money. If you say Mashiach does not work, as Ravashi says, Mashiach that does not work, right? And only money works, but Mashiach does not acquire it. Amai damam b'tarim. Why is the bam mutter? You said over here, you sell your wine to a guy, and you fix the price before you measured it out. It's mutter. Why? Why is it mutter? Why is it mutter? If Mashiach doesn't work, why is it mutter? The fact is that if you set the price before, if Mashiach doesn't work, you said it become anakon. If it doesn't work, why is it dama mutter? You bought it already with the it doesn't work. So he didn't if he didn't pay for it yet, and Mashiach doesn't work, why do you say mutar? As soon as the guy picked it up, he didn't acquire it, therefore it's still yours, and therefore when he pays you for it later on, you're getting hana from Yayin Nesach. Again, our Mishnah said if you sell it to the guy and you fix the price and he didn't measure it out yet, right? He fixed the price before he measured it out, dam of mutarin. But what if he fixed the price? If he didn't pay for it yet and Mashiach doesn't work, so it doesn't work. What doesn't acquire it? So when the guy acquired it from you, when he took it from you, Mashiach doesn't work, so it's still yours. He didn't pay for it yet. Mashiach doesn't work, it's still yours. So why are you allowed to get paid for it? You get it, he turned it into Yayin Nesach before you got paid. Yeah, but Mashiach my dom mutar. My skin and document he paid for it. He paid him for it before. In other words, the Mishnah says, if you fix the price, then if you fix the price before you poured it out, it's okay. Why is that okay? If he didn't pay for it yet and Mashiach doesn't work, so it's your Yayin Nesach. The guy turned into Yayin Nesach before he acquired it from you, and then you're getting enough from the Yayin Nesach when he pays you for it. So I was speaking about when you pay for it in advance. The guy paid for it. That's why you're allowed to. You fix the price. Pardon?
A dimlay dinar, does that mean down payment?
Yeah, like a down payment. He paid him in advance. We'll see. We're going to talk about that. Like more than a down payment. Paid him in advance. If you paid him in advance, they must seifa. if what? If you measured it out before the price was fixed, he says, okay, we'll work out the price later on. As Dam Basurin, you can't have it. Why? Either come again if you pay for it in advance, it was the guy's already. So even if you didn't fix the price yet, why do you say if you didn't fix the price yet and he measured it out, you can't have a no, you can't take money for it. Why? If you paid for it in advance, it was the guy's already. Am I Dam Basurim? Amalei. So therefore, it must be that Mashiach does work. That's exactly the problem. If it exactly the problem. If you paid for it in advance, it shouldn't be a usher anyway. But if he said to him, in other words, Rav Meir would maintain that the guy acquired. Why is it mutter in the first case? Because the guy acquired it before he turned it into yain nesach, because Mashiach works. But according to Rav Ashi, Mashiach doesn't work, so it still belongs to the Jew. So why are you allowed to have a no from it? Why are you allowed to take the money? Oh, he paid him in advance. So if he paid him in advance, why in the second case does he say Dama Basuri to come din my Dama Basurim? So Rav Ashi answered him. Rav Ashi answered who? Rav Shisha said to Rav Ashi, Rav Shisha said to Rav Ashi. So he answered him back, Uldidach, and you who maintain you're defending a Meimer. Uldidach Dam Mashiach Mavakav Koni. You say Mashiach does work. Am I Reisha Dam Mutar? Why does work? If you say it works, why in the Reisha is Dam Mutar the Sefer Dam Basurim? Why do you explain it? Because you say Mashiach works either way, right? So if Mashiach works, why in the Reisha is it mutter? The Chari turned it into yain nesach before, right? And the Sefer Dam Basurim, right? Why do you say? Because in the Reisha it says you're allowed to have another. The first part of the Mishnah says you're allowed to have another from it because you fixed the price already. And the Sefer doesn't work. Ameimer says the reason it works is because he acquired it first. So why in the Sefer is it also if he acquired first? Oh, you say he paid for it in advance, right? That's how he will answer it. If Mashiach, and as Rav Ashi will say, the reason is because he paid for it in advance. So if he paid for it in advance, why is it also in the Sefer? The guy paid for it already. Here's the difference. If you set the price, the guy might have given him some money in advance. But if you set the price, he has in mind to acquire it, right? Low pasuk, if you didn't fix the price, I'll give you some money now in advance. I'll give you an advance if I'm gonna, for the wine. But if I don't like the price that you're going to tell me later on, you didn't mean to keep it. That's the idea over here. If you set the price in advance, he did pay for it in advance. That's what Rav Ashi will say. He paid for it in advance. So why, if you pay for it in advance, is it no good in the Sefer? You can't keep the money there if you paid for it already. The difference is if you paid for it and there was a set price, then the guy meant to acquire it with the cash. And therefore, even though Mashiach doesn't work according to Rav Ashi, right? In the Sefer, he didn't fix the price yet. I'll give you some money in advance. But if we can't agree on the price, like you give a down payment on the house or whatever it is, I'll give you some money. But if we don't agree on the price, I want my money back. And that's what happened right there. Pasuk, some chadai, he has in mind to acquire it. Low pasuk, if he didn't fix the price, low some chadai, he's not thinking about it. So that's right. You have to explain it also. You who say that it's speaking about where he made that Mashiach alone acquires it. So why in the Sefer doesn't it work? Because he didn't fix the price. So even if the guy was moshech it, but even if he pulled it, if there was no fixed price, he didn't want to acquire it. And if he didn't want to acquire it, he made it yain nesach while it was in Yerushus. Therefore, you can't have enough from the money. You can't take money for it. The dinami, Rav Ashi will say, I also say that the my dinar, even though I gave you some money in advance, the guy gave him some money in advance. Pasuk, if you fix the price, some chadaiti meant to acquire it. Low pasuk, low some chadaiti. Amle Ravina Rav Ashi. So Ravina said to Rav Ashi again. Rav Ashi who says what that the a Mashiach of a guy doesn't work. Tashma. The Omar Rav Chia bar Abba said, Omar Yochanan, Ben Noach Nereg al Pach Puta. Jews have a rule: less than Shavar Puta doesn't count. If I steal less than a Shavar Puta, you give Makadash Nisha with less than Shavar Puta, it doesn't work. If I steal less than a Shavar Puta, I'm not high for that. I don't have to return either. A guy doesn't have a rule that way. They're not mochel, and therefore a guy is killed because a guy, all the sign mitzvahs is putting off. The punishment is killing for all of them, right? All of them, they're decapitated for any of these sign mitzvahs, including stealing. If a Jew steals, he just has to return it. Doesn't have to go to jail. But a guy steals, he's killed for that. So Ben Noach Neregal Pach Shavuta. V'lo nitin l'shavan. V'lo nitin l'shavan means that he doesn't have to return it to a Jew because a Jew is not the Pashut Pshat is Jew doesn't care about less than a shavan puta. He's mochel that. So that's the Pashut Pshat and lo nitin l'shavan. In other words, the guy is killed if he steals less than a shavan puta, and he doesn't have to return it because the Jew doesn't mind. If you say Mashiach doesn't work like you, Rav Ashi, maintain, a mine Eric, so why is he killed? If Mashiach doesn't work, he stole it, Mashiach doesn't work. So why should he be killed? That's Mishum the Tsar Yisrael, because he caused pain to the Jew. He troubled the Jew. That's why he's killed. Not for acquiring, he didn't acquire it. So what does it mean? He doesn't have to return it. He's not capable of returning it. In other words, since he doesn't acquire, the truth is that he doesn't acquire it. Rav Ashi maintains that a goy does not acquire something by pulling it, by drawing it, by lifting it. Doesn't acquire it. So therefore, what does it mean? Lo nitin l'shavan? He doesn't have to return it because it still belongs to the Jew. Doesn't mean lo nitin l'shavan that the Jew is mochel him. It means that he doesn't return it because it's not his. He never acquired it anyway. If that's the case, the safest is over there. Let's say the goy Clyde stole it from the Jew, so he's killed for that, right? And he doesn't have to return it because it's not in his rishus anyway. It's not his. He doesn't have to return it now. It belongs to the Jew wherever it is. Let's say a second guy came and stole it from the first guy. He's killed for that. I understand why the Jew, you just said, why is the guy killed when he steals something from a Jew, even a half a pruta? Because he caused pain to the Jew. Okay, but when the second guy stole it from the first guy, why is he killed? If you say he doesn't acquire it, you can say Israel. Let's say for my of it, what did he do? He's not killed for causing tsar to a guy. So why would he be killed if he doesn't acquire it? You see, Mashiach does kill, and therefore we go back to our original reason. When the guy was moshichet, when he stole half a pruta from the Jew, he's killed for causing him tsar, right? But he's killed for that, right? You say he's killed for that. A minor, he's killed for that. The truth is he's killed for stealing it. He did acquire it. The reason that's never returned it is because the Jew is mochel less than a proof that the Jew is mochel anyway, but he did acquire it. So according to this, they did bring a proof to a maimer that Mashiach does work by a guy, though Rav Ashi maintains that it doesn't work. We said before that we said the Rashi said before when we pass Shum Galil, it's only chavas b'chavas. If you sell 100 bales for the price of 99, you're okay, even though one of them is yain nesach, you're not having enough from it, but not wine for wine. So the Gemara said that we gave that answer. So here the Gemara says when we bring down Abai and Rava, how could they answer the kasha? Abai and Rava here answered the kasha on a Maimar. They lived much later, so the answer is that's always an issue in the Gemara. How could this one give an answer? The truth is they were going on Rabbi Yochanan, who said the same thing, and a Maimar said the same thing as Rabbi Yochanan. So we bring down his answer. They didn't actually physically answer him because they were Abai and Rava were earlier historically than a Maimar. All right, we'll pick him here tomorrow, Mr. Shem, with the story of Ahu Gavra on the end of the fifth line. Have a good day, everybody. Kultu.